Good morning on this last Sunday of December. It's great to be here with you, whether you're watching it on Sunday morning or throughout the week at some point. It's a great chance to film this last Sunday sermon for the year in the church building. And although we miss having you here, we know that this is the season that we're in, and we will do our part as followers of Jesus to contribute towards the benefit of our society. That is the basic love and act of being a good neighbor. We're going to begin this morning by reading a psalm. Shout for joy to God, all the earth. Sing the glory of his name. Make his praise glorious. Say to God, how awesome are your deeds. So great is your power that your enemies cringe before you. All the earth bows down to you. They sing praise to you. They sing the praise of your name. Over the next coming weeks, we have a few things that we'd like to draw your attention to. The last is that our office will be open this Tuesday on December the 29th for the last day of office hours. This is your opportunity to drop off any donations in a curbside drop-off if you would like, or anything that is post-dated in December can be mailed to the church at any time. Also, we're looking forward on the second Wednesday of January to begin our prayer meetings again online. That'll be taking place on Zoom, and we look forward to that. So as we gather in his name, and as you're at home this morning, you have more freedom to worship in whichever way. So I encourage you guys to put down your phones, put down distractions, maybe even stand up, close your eyes, open up to a posture of worship, and let's sing with the voices that God gave us from the comfort of our own homes, and let's give worship to his name. Let's worship together.
Splendor of the King, clothed in majesty, let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide. Trembles at his voice, trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will see how great is our God. Time is in his hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one, Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will see how great is our God. You are the name of How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? And all will see how great is our God. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? Oh, we'll see how great is our God. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. And without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart.
Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, when I cannot stand, I fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. So teach my song to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, when I cannot stand, I fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. When I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
Well, this is my last sermon as one of the staff pastors at Markham Missionary Church. And over the last month, I've been really wrapping my mind, having this amazing opportunity to preach on my last Sunday, and thinking about what is it that God would have me share? What passage, what story, what exhortation of Scripture is it that the Lord has been laying on my heart to bring to you? And over the last number of years I've been here, it's been almost 15 years, I've seen a large amount of change that's taken place at this church. And most of you would agree that the goals that we've gotten to are still in process and we haven't quite reached them yet. One of the biggest challenges that Markham Missionary Church has had over the years is keeping pace with the long-term goals that we have. This is not unique to Markham Missionary Church. This is a challenge of being a follower of Jesus. As the Lord has given us the command to make disciples of all nations, we are working towards a goal that we must continually move towards, that has no exact arrival destination or summative moment, but one that we continue to follow in faithfulness. It's hard to stay focused on the goals that we have when progress is slow and milestones are farther apart. Sometimes it's challenging to remember why we are moving towards a certain goal or purpose. And sometimes it takes a reinforcement, a reminder, a recentering on the goals themselves to help ground us in where we're at in this journey and how we're moving forward. In seeking and praying through the topic for this last message, it led me back to the retreat that the elders took in the beginning of October. The elders spent time following a scriptural model and plan for change. It was a 20-step journey that laid out within a beautiful scriptural context what it takes to get where you want to go, to how to move from point A to point B, and see the work that the Lord is doing in that journey. Now, I don't have time this morning to go through all 20 points, nor would I subject you to a 20-point sermon, because who's going to remember that? But these principles are so simple and powerful that they are worth sharing, and it's a concept that begs to be explored looking through the book of Nehemiah. So today we're going to distill that down to 5 central principles that will allow the church to move forward into that next season. These principles are simple and powerful. And as we explore this in Nehemiah's story, we'll start to gain a better understanding of where Markham Missionary Church can go in the future ahead. The book of Nehemiah begins within a context of having the city of Jerusalem been destroyed in the past. It was 8 years since the city was destroyed that the first exiles came back to Jerusalem. 71 years after the destruction of the city itself, the temple had been rebuilt. But the city was not yet complete. It had not made it back to its former status or level of prosperity and construction. In the year 435 BC, Nehemiah comes back to Jerusalem with the goal of rebuilding the wall of the city. Now for him, this wasn't a journey that he just woke up one morning and said, okay, let's build a wall. This was a journey and a process that the Lord led him on over a length of time, and one that required significant commitment and working towards a vision that God had placed in his mind. Now within any journey, the first step is receiving a vision from God. And this was written down for us in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 3 to 4. They said to me, "Those who survived the exile are back in the province, are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire." When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. Nehemiah realized that there was an 80-year problem that had taken place. That the city had been reconstructed little by little. That the temple had been rebuilt for corporate worship to God. But the city walls remained broken. Now, without city walls, the city would have been vulnerable to siege. They wouldn't have had that same sense of protection and security. It would allow anyone to come and go as they saw fit and as they pleased, without any sense of security on who was in the city at any point in time. The nation and the Jewish nation were in the process of looking to return back to this sense of security that they had, to this sense of comfort and pride. But they were not forward-thinking enough to get to the destination of their goals. They had done the bare minimum to ensure practical function, and that's where it had ended. They had done the bare minimum to get them close enough to what they wanted, but without ever completing the task well, or completing it to where it needed to be. The reality is that this means that the nation had lost a sense of value with moving forward. Lost a sense of the importance of the goals that they had, of reclaiming what was lost. This speaks to a broken mindset of the nation, that they had lost sight of their goals and no longer desired to accomplish that which God had laid out for them within being a nation amongst the world. Now, the Lord placed this burden on Nehemiah. He had this burden of seeing what could be, of seeing the destination. And this is a gift amongst leaders. Not all individuals have this ability to see something that doesn't exist and to be able to dream towards something better than what is currently taking place. Nehemiah was someone who saw it and had the opportunity and skill sets to make it happen. There are some leaders that they have a vision and they see the destination but are entirely unsure of the process of how to get there. But Nehemiah was clear on not only the goal, but of a process of how to get there. There was a problem for the nation, and that was that there was no walls for the city. And for Nehemiah, this burned in his heart so desperately, it required an immediate response. But as we remember from the timeline that we talked about earlier, Nehemiah is tackling a problem that has been there for 80 years, a problem that people had just come to accept and acknowledge that this is the way the world is, this is the way the city is. It's a problem that nobody was seeking to fix anymore. And for Nehemiah, for him to address this issue, for him to accomplish the goals that had been set out, it required him to make great personal sacrifice. Nehemiah left a position of security, of comfort, of prosperity, of all things known, to leave all of those things to follow what God had asked him to do. This commitment required a great personal sacrifice for the betterment of the society itself. If one person did not take this goal on to rebuild these walls, then the city would never be blessed from the security that they would provide. And as Nehemiah received this vision from God, one that was so important and so actionably relevant, it led him to do what needed to be done to ensure that it would be accomplished. When we receive a vision from God, God has given us a picture of something. And it's our responsibility to respond to that need in a way that it allows us the greatest opportunity to be faithful in that moment. Now, the truth is, any vision that a leadership has, any vision that a company has, any plan that is put into place is one that requires refinement, one that requires a process of change. And the reality is that visible changes are not always immediate within following God's vision or within seeking to accomplish the goals that we have. When Nehemiah received his vision, which was clear that the responsibility and need was to rebuild the walls, work did not actually begin immediately. I'm going to put a picture on the screen for you, which is a mapping of the Jewish calendar to our modern calendar. When Nehemiah first received this information that the wall was in disrepair, it was in the month of Kislev, which is in and around our November and December. And it was through that time that Nehemiah prayed, that he grieved, that he wrestled through this need here. And it wasn't until the month of Nisan, in either March or April, that he had actually asked the king for the resources and time to leave his post to address this issue. That was 5 months of time. I mean, the problem that existed is pretty simple in concept. The wall needs to be rebuilt, and yes, builders would rebuild that wall. But there was something intentional about the process that he took. Something intentional in waiting the time and waiting for the right time to address this issue. And meanwhile, over these 5 months, the wall is still not getting built. Now, in chapter 2, verse 11, and throughout chapter 2, we get this picture of Nehemiah beginning the surveying work that needs to be done. As he rides in and through the city, through the different gates, surveying the damage, surveying what could be salvaged, what needs to be reconstructed entirely, there is no building that's happening yet. And in that time, the people closest to Nehemiah didn't even have insight into what he was doing. But Nehemiah was still working, and God was still working through that whole season. Although the building had not yet begun, God is still working to accomplish things. And the first draft of Nehemiah's plan did not have all the answers to it. In chapter 3, they begin first by working on the gates. And at least 6 gates are mentioned in that chapter that will be the first stages of that building project. Now we know that the goal was to rebuild the walls, that time was taken to plan for it, that survey work and assessments were done, and now the first building projects are the gates that will need to be taken care of. And all of these things are groundwork that are contributing towards the goal, but aren't actually doing the building of the wall itself. And that's important to recognize, that within working towards a goal, not every effort that put in is directly related to the actual outcome, but is things and areas that contribute towards it. And in that sense, as Nehemiah worked through this project of rebuilding the wall, the complexity and scale and dynamic of what needed to be done continually grew as he worked through this. And there are stages and processes that need to be followed within any goal-setting structure or any process of change. Now, it's easy for people to get upset about not seeing progress. But I think when people get upset about not seeing progress, it's less to do with whether or not something has been accomplished as it is more to do with information and communication. When someone's getting upset with a lack of change, are they really aware of all the factors that are taking shape in this whole experience? Are they aware of all the processes and behind-the-scenes work that has happened? And if they are or aren't, it then becomes a communication issue of reminding, of pointing towards the destination, of drawing the parallel in the journey to this is where we're going and these are those milestones along the way. I think more generally when people get upset about not seeing change, it's because they don't understand where the process is at and how the process has been moving along. And it's important to remember when accomplishing change that there is a need to constantly reiterate the goal and the destination. When I think of change, I think of the Israelites in the wilderness wandering through the desert. The goal was that promised land. The goal was that promised land. And the process was about moving and traveling. within a nomadic culture. It would have been so much easier to set down roots and say we're going to stay here until it's time to go to that promised land and make one trip. But there was a journey that the Lord led them through to get them ready for the reception of that gift. And it's an important thing to remember when talking about change and trying to understand change. Before getting upset, we need to talk to the people who are involved, to understand the process, understand the backstory, understand the journey that has taken place, to ask and get the information, to answer the questions before letting our emotions and frustrations get the best of us because we feel like not enough is happening. And when it comes to change, there's something that's important to remember within leading a journey of change. And that's that at the core of it, there will be those who hate what you are trying to accomplish. No matter how God-honoring our goals are, no matter how biblically supported, people will criticize, people will get frustrated because it's not the strategy that they feel is best or not the main value that they feel needs to be focused on. And it's important to remember within this journey of change that people will criticize change. And Nehemiah went through so much of this. In chapter 2, verse 19, it said, "But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us, saying, 'What is this you're doing?' they asked. 'Are you rebelling against the king?'" The goal was to build the walls again, to provide safety, comfort, and security, and to rebuild what God had envisioned. And these critics are trying to undercut the value and purpose in it. There is no value in rebuilding the walls. There is no benefit that comes from it. They're trying to project a motive that is not true. Nehemiah, in building these walls, is trying to bring honor back to the nation and trying to bring security back to the culture. And they're projecting it and painting his motives as being rebellious rather than rebuilding, of trying to create dissension rather than trying to create focal and unity. In chapter 4, it continued as they even criticized the work that was being done. Tobiah the Ammonite, again, who was at his side, said, "What are they building? Even a fox climbing up on it would break down their wall of stones." He, in his desire after being unable to undercut the vision itself, is now trying to undercut the actual tasks that are being done, saying that the job is being done so poorly that the efforts are worthless. He's saying that there will be no lasting impact within the work that's being done here. And within chapter 6, these critics even got to the point of violence, where they were so actively trying to destroy this project that they took their aggression and anger out on Nehemiah himself. That their logic wasn't working in attacking the goal, so let's destroy the person who's motivating this journey. And this happens in arguments that we have at the basic level. When you can't convince somebody of something that you believe, well, it's because they're stupid. It's because they're not smart enough to see it. Sanballat the Geshem sent this message to me. "Come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono." But they were scheming to harm me. So I sent messengers to them with this reply: "I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you?" 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. These attacks were becoming personal. They were becoming motivated in an attempt to destroy the project, to hopefully get the result that these critics wanted, which was for the wall to no longer be a priority. So the question becomes, in this process of change, we've received a vision from God. We recognize that change takes place in a process, and recognizing that we're going to receive criticism and frustration and people who lash out at this because we don't understand. What then is our response? How do we deal with criticism about the change that we are trying to accomplish as a church? Well, we do it with prayer and grace, and if necessary, by clarifying the visioning process itself. Nehemiah in chapter 2 said, "I answered them by saying, 'The God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding, but as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it.'" These critics that are laying so heavily on Nehemiah are not even Jewish by nation. And thus, their opinion isn't worth weighing down or affecting what God has laid on them. This is what we go through as Christians in the 21st century, doing things differently than the rest of the world would, because we believe that God is doing something in and amongst us that the rest of the world will not understand. And when it comes to dealing with conflict and change, and when we respond in grace and love, and when we clarify why we're doing this, it's important to remember that still there will be some who just don't understand. When faced with a different value set than their own, they have an inability to relate well to anything else. And for Nehemiah, when faced with all this criticism, all this opposition, he ensured that it did not distract him from the goals that he had. When there was opposition to this God-given vision, Nehemiah held to that vision, because he did not put his own understandings first, but he put the plan that God laid on him. And for those who couldn't grasp to see what God was doing here, the values that God was giving, and the direction that God was giving, led them to a position and behavior that was just outright sinful. And conflict can't go unaddressed within a community. When you as MMC do things for the Lord, it won't make sense to everyone else in the community around it. But if the vision that you have is truly from God and one that you take seriously to your heart and to your practice, the Lord will honor that. And after 15 years at this church, I've seen significant change and significant conflict about small, ridiculous, unimportant theological things, and about large shifts within the culture of who this body understands it to be. And oftentimes, I would see such strong, unnecessary, volatile reactions to change. But the reality is that's just part of the journey that we live as leaders. And I do believe the greatest challenge Markham Missionary Church has within change is within continuing to track movement towards it. It's easy to decide a destination. It's challenging to continue to move towards it. And I know this church, just like any church, doesn't want to, in 80 years, be facing the same challenges and the same obstacles that it is today. So for all who genuinely seek to see God move within this church, which I believe is all of you, it's important to remember that God's vision for the church, God's vision for Markham Missionary Church, will thrive in an environment of unity. Now, I say unity very intentionally, and by unity, I do not mean uniformity. Within unity, there may be a difference of opinion. Within unity, there may be different values and different priorities. But unity exists when in application, movement is done together. If a team makes a decision and outside the room, one of those team members is constantly undercutting that decision or the value that was decided upon, it is not an environment of unity. Unity does not require uniformity. It does not require people to put aside their personal understandings and differences. But unity requires support, love, grace, compassion, and care for one another. And within the vision that we are working towards, if it is truly from the Lord, it will glorify the Lord in application. Because God's vision for a church dies in a community that is divided against itself. The Bible is full of references to this. No one can serve two masters. A house divided against itself cannot stand. But it's important to remember that within change, within these visions that we receive from God, within planning for their application, within meeting conflict and addressing conflict, it's important to hold on to one thing above all else, that the end of a God-ordained ministry vision is always God-honoring behavior. Nehemiah wasn't about the status or glory that would come from being the one who rebuilt the wall. And in chapter 8, we see, after the nation did it, after these goals were accomplished, what actually happened within that community. And it says in chapter 8, all the people came together as one in the square before the water gate. They told Ezra, the teacher of the law, to bring out the book of the law of Moses, which the Lord had commanded for Israel. So on the first day of the seventh month of Ezra, the priest brought the law before the assembly, which was made up of men and women and all who were able to understand. He read it aloud from daybreak till noon as he faced the square before the water gate. In the presence of men, women, and others who could understand, all of the people listened attentively to the book of the law. As you as a church continue to move forward to what God has planned for you, it's important to remember this journey that Nehemiah went to and just how similar it is to what we experience within our world today. It's important to remember first that vision comes from God. That vision is an experience that we receive collectively and corporately. It's not somebody showing up one day and saying, "The Lord has told me that this is what we need to do as a church." That is not a corporate vision. That is a personal task that the Lord has given. When leaders meet together, they pray together, they discern together, and they plan together. The Lord will make clear those opportunities and that strategy to accomplish this kingdom work. And a unified vision comes from God, and God is seeking and ready to give that vision. The second thing is to remember that implementation takes time. It will not be immediate, it may not be visible to everybody, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. That doesn't mean that the Lord isn't doing a great and mighty work amongst you. The third thing is to remember that people will criticize God's vision. And this has less to do with you personally than it has to do with them personally. When people attack the Lord's vision, it often comes from a place of insecurity, fear, or just lack of understanding. And that shouldn't affect you personally in terms of following the commitment and following the vision that God has given you as a church. And when you are met with those criticisms, it's important to respond with grace, with peace, with understanding, but more important, with unwavering commitment to the vision that God has given you. Conflict can be a great divider, but it can also be a great unifier. Conflict can allow leaders to be reminded of what it is that they are seeking to accomplish and pull tighter towards those goals that the Lord has set. And as you as a church move forward into this next season towards these goals, and as you inevitably will experience conflict, may it unify you as a church. May it pull you closer to the goals that God has given you. And may you respond once again with that grace and peace, but with an unwavering commitment. And as you move in this final step towards all that God is seeking to accomplish through you, you as a church will grow closer to God. You will be drawn closer to Him in faith, in understanding, in wisdom, and in blessing. And that is truly what the Lord seeks for this church. To accomplish a great and mighty task that will be ongoing, that will not have a specific arrival destination, that is done within a world that is chaotic and crumbling and in pain. But may you do it in a way that speaks light, speaks truth, and speaks commitment to what the Lord is building through you. And if within that you can follow this process of change, this biblical model for how to work through towards the goals that God has given you, you will grow as a body, you will grow in number, you will grow within the partnership and spiritual impact that you will have for the kingdom in this city. So I ask and I beg you as a leader within the kingdom that you would pray for your leadership, that you would support your leadership, that when you are frustrated with them as a church, that you would go to them and seek to discuss and hear what it is that God is working in their plans. And may the Lord continue to build you as one body with one purpose. And may you receive His blessing. Let's pray. Dear Father God, I thank you for the kingdom impact that Markham Missionary Church has had over these last decades. And Lord, may this season ahead be one of growth for them, of personal growth, of spiritual growth, of growth in terms of the impact that they have. Lord, as the elders centered on this goal of making disciples within their retreat, this goal of ensuring that what they do is making a spiritual impact within the community. Lord, may this church rally around that great commission. Lord, may they look at what they do, look at their calendar, and ensure that the efforts that they put in will have an impact into those goals. Father God, we thank you for all of these things and ask your great and mighty blessing upon this church. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, it's been a journey to say the least, and one that I am thankful to have been with you for a season. And as I end this last official message, I give you this benediction, and may the God who created you, Christ who has saved you, and the Holy Spirit who guides you bless, preserve, and keep you for this day and forevermore. In his name, go in peace, and we'll see you soon.